bound, beaten, and burned. Those are just some of the things that prosecutors say happened to Camilo Salazar in his final moments on this earth. He was killed back in 2011, and now the man who is said by prosecutors to be behind his kidnapping and his murder is standing trial. If you're unfamiliar with this story, don't worry, we got you. We're calling this one the supermarket mogul murder trial. Here's some of the background. June 1st, 2011, 43-year-old Camilo Salazar dropped off his 3-week-old daughter with his wife, who was at work in Miami. He was supposed to pick her up in an hour from then, but he was never seen again. Later that day, police spotted a brush fire along a dirt road near the Everglades.
Throat slit, wrists and hands bound with a belt, face and head badly beaten, fractured, set on fire.
There they found Camilo Salazar's charred remains. His throat was slit, his body brutalized.
Camilo Salazar was not just murdered, he was tortured. Camilo Salazar suffered greatly.
It would take the medical examiner days before she could positively ID him. As police began investigating Salazar's death, they quickly discovered he was having an affair with the wife of a prominent Miami businessman, Manuel Marin.
As you know, Manuel Marin is the former co-owner of El Presidente Supermarket. You know this chain, there's many of them throughout our community.
According to court documents, Jenny Marin and Salazar had been seeing each other for several years. They would meet weekly and communicate via email and a burner phone. And it was during the spring of 2011 that police say Manuel Marin began planning a revenge killing.
June 1st of 2011, Manuel Marin returned from a Memorial Day weekend, a family trip. They were all together with his wife and his children. They had sailed to Bimini on his yacht.
Investigators say Marin conspired with 3 other men to kidnap and kill his wife's lover.
The defendant wanted to be there to see his victim suffer, but he was running late. The defendant had traveled to Bimini on his yacht, and unfortunately for him, he ran into some weather that prevented him from being in Miami at the time Camilo was kidnapped.
Manuel Marin is charged with second-degree murder, kidnapping, and conspiracy, and has pleaded not guilty.
This case is about revenge, vengeance. The defendant, Manuel Marin, killed Camilo because Camilo was sleeping with his wife. And the defendant believed that Camilo Salazar deserved the ultimate punishment.
Manuel Marin's defense team says it was a situation where a bad plan went tragically wrong.
He takes it upon himself, this guy, Alexis Villaperdomo, to give a beating to Camilo Salazar. No one will come in here and say that there was a plan to kill Camilo Salazar. No one will say that.
Okay, you heard defense counsel there saying nobody, no witness who might be coming in to testify, meaning those co-defendants, is going to say that there was a plan. But was there a message? We're going to find out more when court resumes at the top of the hour. We're going to go in there live. But for now, let me bring in my guests and talk about whether there might have been a message with this victim being bound, beaten, tortured before he was killed, parts of his body badly burned. Agent Ted Golden and attorney Marie Pereira on the show this morning. Agent Golden, let me talk to you, please. Is there a message that seems to be sent here with the torture and reportedly a certain part of his body? It's my understanding his genitalia was set on fire. His throat was slit, according to what we understand in this case. Your thoughts, please.
Yes, ma'am. Unfortunately, crime is the price you pay for freedom. We have people who think that they can do what they want to who they want, whenever they want, and they'll never get caught, especially when you've got money. And the horrendous way they treat this man just shows man's inhumanity to man, and how we think that we can do things to people and it not be a consequence. It doesn't matter whether you intended to kill him or not. The man is dead. And even if you did intend to kill him, what you did to him would probably killed him anyway. So their motive, regardless of what it is, resulted in his death. And this is another case I'm shocked it's going to trial. I'm just shocked. These people think
because the evidence is so strong, right? Is that why you're stunned, Agent?
Yes, ma'am. But it's happening a lot more now. Used to, 95, 98% of the cases involved like this, they plead guilty because they don't want to face the wrath of the court or a jury. There's no justification. The only reason why this man's going to trial because he's got money. And I've had that happen before. Guilt is not the issue. The fact that he's telling his attorney, I want my day in court, regardless of what's going to happen.
I appreciate it, Agent Golden. And apparently he got something else, a cell phone. Let's take a listen to a clip from the state's opening statements, and we'll discuss whether or not this makes a link from the defendant to the scene of this crime.
After firefighters put out the flames, after Camilo was found burned, charred, bleeding, his phone lights up. His phone is turned on. And guess who, members of the jury, had that phone? Guess who took that phone as a trophy, as a prize? The man seated right there, Manuel Marin. Because everyone knows, with infidelity, you want to see those texts.
Oh, that's a good piece of evidence the state has, isn't it, Marie Pereira? Share with us your thoughts on this, please.
It sounds like the smoking phone instead of the smoking gun. How could he be so ridiculous to keep the man's cell phone? I was thinking, if they brought this case to trial, they must have a link between him and who I want to call the assassins, and he can't refute it. The only person who knew what was going on was him. He hired those people, and if they can connect him with digital information, he's done for.
Oh, yeah, this is bad. I mean, and this guy, he goes to Spain, for years and years, so that's something else that if prosecutors, as you know, Marie, in this jurisdiction in Florida can use that in a jury instruction, they might argue to the jury, flight is consciousness of guilt here. I mean, this is not good. Let's take a listen to some of what Manuel Marin's defense attorney told the jury in his opening statements, because it seems to me that there's a concern about those co-defendants. Obviously, the defense is, probably pretty scared about what might be said in the courtroom by these people who are the alleged co-conspirators. He addresses one of them in particular here, Alexis Perdomo. Let's take a listen to some of what he said about this guy.
When he came over, the person who really gave him a hand, because he knew him from before, was Mr. Marin. Gave him a hand in every way, including a job at Presidente Supermarkets. Okay? And this fellow, Alexis Perdomo, was always very grateful that Mr. Marin did that for him. Always. And he saw his friend despondent, down about life and about things. His marriage is crumbling. This is his second marriage. And basically what he's done, okay, he takes it upon himself, this guy, Alexis Perdomo, to give a beating to Camilo Salazar. No one will come in here and say that there was a plan to keep Camilo Salazar. No one will say that, including Mr. Gandula, their witness, who they're telling you is telling the truth. Mr. Gandula will tell you that the plan, this guy, Alexis Perdomo, got rolling was to give him a beating. In other words, slap him around, make sure, hey man, stop the affair with this guy's wife.
Okay, and so who better to give a beating than a former MMA fighter and Olympic wrestler? Apparently that's what Alexis Perdomo did in his career. A very talented wrestler and fighter, apparently. He was convicted in 2019 of second-degree murder and doing 15 years for this. Agent Golden, let me pick your brain, please. Could he be looking at an earlier parole if he comes in and swears to tell the truth and is a state witness?
Yes, ma'am. He'll get some time off his sentence. That's part of the state system. They'll allow him to do that. I'm shocked that he had the defense attorney use this conversation. Clearly, he's the key witness, but the problem he's not addressing is the fact that when you're a part of a conspiracy, whatever happens with a conspiracy, once you enter into it, you're responsible for what the outcome is. And unfortunately, the man died, was killed and butchered like that.
Yeah, absolutely. You don't have to be there to be convicted. You know that, Agent, and you as well, Attorney Pereira. Stand by. I have more questions for both of you. Need to hit a break, please. Here's what we're going to do. I want to let you know that this trial is set to pick back up at the top of the hour, 9 a.m. Eastern time. This one is going to kick back off. And on Wednesday, the jury heard from the woman who's at the center of the love triangle, Jenny Marin. This is the defendant's ex-wife. She took the stand, detailed her marriage to him, and told the jury all about her affair with the victim, Camilo Salazar. We're going to give you a look at exactly what she said when we come back.
He fell for a con man and his lies, but did she have anything to do with the murder of his ex-wife?
Every person is capable of murder.
Someone They Knew with Tamron Hall. All new episode tonight, 7/6 Central on Court TV.
Manuel Marin was a very successful businessman, very wealthy. He owned Presidente Supermarkets throughout South Florida. He had a beautiful house. He had a beautiful family. And he threw that all away because his wife was cheating.
A man who had it all. That is how prosecutors are describing Manuel Marin. He is the man who's being accused of orchestrating the kidnapping and the murder of his wife's lover. The incident in question happening back in 2011, so it's been 12 years since this brutal killing. But Manuel Marin is finally standing trial. And on Wednesday, the jury heard from the woman at the center of it all, his ex-wife, Jenny Marin. She was called to the witness stand as one of the first state witnesses to describe what happened in her marriage and how suspicious her husband became.
The end of 2010 to the beginning of 2011, like around January 2011, how is your marriage with Manny Marin going? Still good, or they?
Somewhat good. I mean, we had problems.
Does he start acting jealous?
He was a little bit more suspicious.
Okay. Why would he be suspicious?
Checking him. Well, he had already discovered that I had a friendship with a past friend on my phone, so he would check on my phone every now and then and look to see who was calling me.
Okay. So you thought he was kind of checking up on you?
Yes.
And that relationship with Camilo, is it still going on?
Yes.
Okay, so the defendant apparently finds out about this relationship that his wife was having with Camilo Salazar. He's very aware. There was actually a point where he confronts the two of them together. They met up to see each other, and he goes and confronts them both. So he knows, and they know he knows. So then fast forwarding a little bit to when we're at the first weekend in June, when this killing took place back in 2011, June the 1st, is the day that Camilo Salazar was kidnapped, tortured, and killed. And Jenny Marin, in this next clip you're about to see, is talking about how she tried calling him, how she became aware of the fact that Camilo Salazar had suddenly gone missing.
Now, during this time, are you calling Camilo?
Yes.
Going to go back, when you get back on June 1st, do you call Camilo?
Yes.
And that track phone you had, how does that work?
I need to buy minutes for it.
Did you go 5 more minutes when you got back?
I did.
And did you keep calling Camilo?
Yes.
Did you call Camilo on June 2nd?
Yes.
Did you call Camilo on June 3rd?
Yes.
Did he answer?
No.
What about on June 4th, the last day you saw Manny? Did you call Camilo?
Yes.
Still no answer.
No answer.
What are you thinking?
I was worried because Camilo would check in. He would call me and say hi at least, and I couldn't get a hold of him. I left him a couple messages and he didn't return any of them, so I was worried.
Yeah, worried as she should have been because he was in a lot of danger. Let me bring in my guests in New York City criminal defense attorney and former prosecutor Marie Pereira, and in Atlanta, Georgia, retired DEA special agent and former Memphis police officer Ted Golden. So the state, after opening up, this case just opened up on Wednesday. For anybody wondering, if you didn't see it yesterday, don't worry, you didn't miss much, but some very important testimony, which is why we're setting it all up to get into day number 2 in just about 20 minutes from now. The state made a decision to call some very important witnesses on day 1. One of the first, the woman who's at the center of it all, Jenny Marin. Marie Pereira, talk to me please about how key her testimony is to the state of Florida and being able to make that link between Manuel Marin, who we know was not there at the time that Camilo Salazar was murdered, but he's alleged by police and investigators to be behind this.
This is very important, Julie. As you always say, primacy and recency, baby. We want to set up the motive early. We want to show that this is his wife. He knew she was having an affair with the victim. She had burner phones, and apparently she had done this before with another friendship, and I'll put that in quotes, and this sets up the motive. Jurors want to know, why would someone do something like that? So to start off, like you say, primacy, bring the woman on to explain how he got to this point.
Yeah, appreciate it, Marie. Thank you for that, my friend. You know, one thing that kind of jumped out at me is a little bit interesting, a little bit of a, looking back at the history. So Jenny Marin and Manuel Marin met back in 1999. And she was 23 years old, he was 45 at the time, and he was married with kids when they started dating. So that's kind of a little bit of an interesting thing here. And then, you know, fast forwarding years later, you know, his, who became his wife is the one who starts cheating on him, and he becomes very upset about it. And, you know, and there's another victim here, you know, the wife of Camilo Salazar, you know, so she's another victim in all of this. And she also gave some testimony when this case opened up on Wednesday. Let's take a listen to some of what she said.
Did he call you to come out and get Skylar, or did he bring Skylar into you? How'd that work?
No, he brought her in. I was still in the meeting.
Okay. So you saw him?
Yes, he came, said hello to everybody. They all knew him. And dropped her off.
What was he going to go do next?
Well, first he forgot her chupo, and that is unacceptable in an office environment.
What is that?
The pacifier. Yeah. So he ran back out, grabbed that, brought it to me. And then he said, "I'll see you soon."
Did he give you a kiss goodbye?
Yes.
Was that the last time you saw Cam?
Yes.
So that's his wife at the time, Camilo Salazar's wife, Daisy, and she's talking about how he dropped off their 3-week-old daughter at her work so that she could feed the little baby, and he was supposed to pick the baby up 45 minutes later, but never did. So that is how Camilo Salazar's wife learned of his disappearance, and then learned of the horrific crime that her husband was a victim of a little later. Agent Ted Golden, tell me what you think about this when you have a love triangle going on, and you have jealousy, and you have people hurting, and people behaving in secret and hiding things. How well does this serve as motivation that the state can use in a criminal prosecution such as this one?
Well, it's the prime part of their investigation and their prosecution. When you got people who can put a human emotion into what's going on, it only makes it even more definitive that the defendant will probably get convicted. You know, he's got his own indiscretions, obviously, having had an affair with her. But this is a heinous crime that he didn't run from. I wouldn't be surprised if he was high-fiving and cheering, and then for him to take the phone that he used to obviously track what his wife was saying to this guy or sending text message to him about, that just makes it even worse. So when you look at this situation, you know, it goes back to what I said earlier, man's inhumanity to man. This is inhumane to treat someone this way. You know, once he caught up with him, that should have been it. But you know how men are. We're very vengeful, and the results can be very, very, very dangerous and deafening when it comes to what we can do to somebody just because of the relationship with someone that we care about.
Very well said, Agent Golden. And certainly our hearts go out to the family of Camilo Salazar. You know, that's got to be so hard for his wife, who we saw there in that clip, Daisy Holcomb, to give testimony. I mean, when you think about an affair happening, losing your husband in such a brutal way, I mean, just the trauma, and, you know, she shouldn't feel embarrassed about anything, but just human nature, I think, you know, I think many people can relate to being cheated on and the embarrassment that is felt with that, and to tell your story in a public courtroom for the world to hear.